So first of all, a short introduction from our side about the Europe Jams. They are part of a European public sphere project, and usually we tour around Europe to gather people under a wooden dome. But due to the current situation, we can't do that. So we try this project online, and we want to collect your ideas and thoughts on the future of Europe in form of an online exhibition and present those ideas directly to the European Commission. And also I'd like to add here that this project is funded by the Alfred Töpfer Stiftung. And today for our final jam, we would like to talk about the conference on the future of Europe. As you may know, the conference was postponed due to the COVID-19 situation, and now we're all waiting for any new information about the start of this conference and how it should look like. And that's exactly what we'd like to discuss with you today. And I'm super happy that all of you were willing to join our session tonight and to share your thoughts on this. And I'm very excited for our discussion today. And now I'm giving over the word to my colleague, Josie.
Thank you, Anna. Yeah, hello from my side. I'm Josie, and I also work for Democracy International. To make sure that everyone can share their ideas and thoughts, under the participants button, you can find the raise your hand feature. So if you have a question or a comment, raise your hand virtually, and please wait with your comment until the last person to speak has finished. Yeah, let's start. I think it would be good when all of the 11 speakers would shortly introduce themselves and their work. As we are lucky to have many stakeholders from different areas of the field, we also included 2 introductory questions, which each of the speakers will also answer to. The questions are, what are your wishes for the conference on the future of Europe, and which topics should be addressed within the conference? And after each introduction, you can ask questions which are urgent and refer directly to the speaker's content, but generally we would like to have a bigger discussion after the introduction round. And the discussion afterwards will be very open and free, and you can just hand over the floor to the next person by yourself. Yeah, I think that's all from my side for now, and let's start. Daniela, do you want to start?
Yeah, I could. Hi, everyone. I'm Daniela. I also work with Democracy International, but I'm here also as a member of the Citizens Takeover Europe Coalition that I see also Laura is here, and I think Michaela will also join us. And the Citizens Takeover Europe Coalition, you might have heard about it. We are a coalition of over 50 NGOs, and we really came to life in about March of last year as a direct response to the delayed conference. We set out position papers, of course, but we're really like a civil society initiative pushing to try to get this conference started as soon as possible. Yeah, I'm sure more will come into it then as we go on to the debate. To answer the questions, how this conference should look like. Well, there's some basic, how it really should look like should be, of course, transparent, participatory at every level, democratic. I'm sure we can go into the details a little bit more, but I think for me, in the topics, it's clear that it's health crises right now is a huge topic, climate is a huge topic. But for me, it's even more interesting to ask, how should we choose what topics should be decided? I have my own personal wishes, what I'd like to discuss them together with other Europeans, but it'd be more interesting to know, I think, also how these topics will be decided and how can we make this conference so participatory at every stage of the process, including the agenda setting phase, which is, I guess, should be starting at any point now. So yeah, I would look forward to also talking about that here today, is how can we make sure that at every process and every step of this conference, from the preparatory phase to the implementation phase, and really importantly to the follow-up phase, how this is going to be done, that there's a clear scope and that there will be clear decisions on how this will be taken, and hopefully also as participatory as possible with the citizens.
Thank you, Daniela. Laura, do you want to continue as you're tightly connected?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so basically I'm going to continue from what Daniela essentially said. I'm also part of the, on behalf of the Citizens Takeover Europe Working Group on the constitutional question. So I wholeheartedly agree with what Daniela just said, and I would just like to add sort of more specifically what we are concerned more with, which the constitutional question is really about addressing European citizens' rights and how they can have a voice in the political scene. So as we have seen right now, there is still a need to bridge a democratic deficit, and there is a need to strengthen engagement. And so our working group is concerned with trying to bring these ideas forward, as well as trying to create more inclusion within the European scene, because right now we have seen that people who are involved in all these issues are predominantly from a very specific and very homogeneous socioeconomic background. And so we need to diversify and create greater inclusion when it comes to engagement of all these people. So we're talking about both people who feel like they're marginalized from the European debate and people who are disengaged completely because they don't feel like they have either a voice or an interest in what is being discussed. So these are definitely things we should bring in the Conference on the Future of Europe, because particularly political and civic rights haven't really been discussed at length. So we still have the Charter of Fundamental Human Rights, which does lay them down clearly, but people are still unaware of how this should turn out and how they can have a say in this. So I think we should definitely bring forward a debate on human and civic rights, as well as what are the affordances that citizens can have and what they are lacking at the moment. They have been getting impatient because this conference hasn't launched. And so we definitely think that they are ready to voice these kinds of opinions. So as a group, we've also been working on a consultation, which if you are interested in filling out, I can definitely send you the link, about sort of what citizens would like to see from the conference. So it's more of a bottom-up approach about sharing their ideas and opinions from a variety of different European countries. And so what we wanted to showcase here, and which is making itself evident from the results, is that there is definitely a potential for the EU to strengthen democracy. And so this is definitely something that has helped us to understand what kinds of topics should be brought forward to the Conference on the Future of Europe. In terms of what it should look like, I also agree with Daniela. It should be more participatory. It should bring the citizens to a focus. It shouldn't be about the politicians making monologues, but mostly about citizens engaging together and providing constructive advice and debates on topics that obviously have to be considered as well. So I hoped and I look forward to seeing a participatory progress, maybe based on deliberative ideals with randomly selected citizens who are able to really bring their ideas to the table.
Thank you, Laura. So please feel free, like everyone, to share whatever information you have in the chat. So share the link with everyone. I saw that Michal, I hope I pronounced that correctly, is also joining us. Do you want to continue and add something to that?
Oh, yes, if no one other want to take the floor right now, of course. Yes, also like Laura, Daniela, and I think some other people here, I'm part of the Citizen Takeover Coalition. And I'm coordinating another working group, which is working on the self-organization of a process, a democratic process that could and should make pressure on the Conference on the Future of Europe. So the idea is that with the coalition, we are doing an advocacy work, and this is also one of the tasks that Daniela has. So we are trying to push institutions to have a transparent, participatory process. But we have always said from the start of the Citizen Takeover Europe coalition that in case the institutions are not going to organize a really participatory Conference on the Future of Europe, we will self-organize an alternative process. And by the way, we want to continue also after the Conference on the Future of Europe or during the Conference on the Future of Europe, a series of experimentation of advanced tools of participatory and deliberative democracy. And particularly, we focus, now it's in the draft of some of the drafts of the Conference of Europe, Conference of Future of Europe project methodology. You have these citizens agoras, where theoretically citizens drawn by lot transnationally would participate in a deliberative process during the conference on the future of Europe. What is still not clear is the mandate of these citizen agoras. And this is one of the core points that also many experts of deliberative democracy, or organizer of local or national experience of citizen assembly are a bit criticizing. By the way, with the coalition, we get those experts, those organizers of citizen assembly from G1000 to Polish citizen assemblies, from the Convention Citoyen Climat to the Forum Cidadãos de Lisboa, to draft together a blueprint for a European Citizen Assembly, conceived as a possible permanent new institution of the European Union, where precisely citizens drawn by lot transnationally all over Europe would gather together, maybe in the premises of the European Parliament, either in Brussels and Strasbourg, both, or also in the national premises of representation of the European Parliament, to deliberate about the future of Europe, and more specifically on topics decided through an agenda setting. And the consultation which Laura was talking about could be part of such a type of agenda setting. Yeah, I think for the moment,
Thank you very much. Peter, do you want to continue, as you're working from a different angle on the conference?
But I'm really happy to be here. Thank you very much, Democracy International, for having invited me. You know, the S&D group is a big supporter of the conference. We wanted this from the start. We actually even have some sort of history, because we already, after the Brexit referendum, started a consultation of people and together with our partners, so with the Progressive Family, which was called the Together Initiative. And we want to renew this opportunity now with the citizens, and to make it, as you said, as participatory, as transparent as possible. We want the agoras. We also want to focus on people, so that no one is left behind. That's very important for us, to reach out to those who have been sort of like excluded or socially sort of like pushed aside. And we sort of like really want to bring these people back, so that Europe again makes sense in people's everyday life. This is very, very important for us. I totally agree with what Michele said also, that we want permanent structures in the future, in terms of sort of like, it would be excellent if this led to a citizens consultation structure in a way. So this is something that our group has adopted a position on, and we really want to, we're looking forward to this to this conference. We hope it's going to start really soon. Nobody has talked about the timing here. We initially was supposed to last 2 years. We very much insist that we give enough time, and this was said over and over again, that we need to give citizens enough time. And also somebody mentioned the follow-up. It's very, very crucial for us that it's not just a listening. We want to, in the first phase of the conference, to very much listen to the citizens, but that then has to be an impact. It was mentioned that we need to discuss the mandate of the citizens agoras. We also want youth agoras. The youth has been very much sort of like not taken into account enough, and youth is especially very much suffering because of the COVID. The COVID maybe helped to raise attention to the need of more Europe, and of a Europe that needs to act to help, because we need to act together. Yeah. But it has also prevented us from starting the conference because of course, of the imperative of having to confine. But we hope that we will be able to start very soon. And of course, the topics, maybe just to say a few words, of course, for us, social Europe will be one of the topics, therefore social inclusion, but also sort of like a democratic Europe, the rule of law, as well as, of course, the Green Deal. But the Green Deal, we always say with a red heart, for us. It's going to be very, very important that it takes into account sort of like the transition, also the digital transition, to make sure that it's a fair transition. So we need the transition. I think a new world will start after the COVID, but that this world will have to be fair, and we have to make sure that those policies are there to make sure that, and citizens need to participate in that. Therefore, I think it's going to be a successful conference if it's a movement of citizens.
Thank you very much. Maria, I saw your clapping hands and thumbs up. Do you want to continue?
Yes, I mean, I just get psyched when, you know, Peter is speaking from his progressive heart. So, you know, happy to follow. Really good to see everybody. Delighted to be here again, even though I'm equally saddened that the jam sessions will slowly come to a conclusion and end, but let's see. Over and all, very happy on behalf of FEPS for having partaken in this initiative and some of its discussions. And I think that, you know, today's discussion is not only very timely, but very important. I think that, you know, we already sensed both from Daniela and Peter on the urgency of citizens actually feeling listened to. But I would like to take perhaps the conversation more of the institutional dimension of it, because if we look back at the constitutional treaty and what happened, of course, I would say it was a very dramatic situation for the European project, right? And now with the relaunched Conference on the Future of Europe, the priority given by the European Commission, and most importantly, the raising the bar by the European Parliament. I think this is very important and should be emphasized, and especially here, the role of the S&D group in actually setting the bar higher and the expectations higher of the Conference on the Future of Europe should be noted. It provides for, let's say, the window of, you know, a greater political union. And this is also what we as organizations here, all of us in participating in these jam sessions, are aspiring to. Perhaps as to how it should work here, I'm going to grab on Peter's very last intervention on the youth agoras, because as how I came to understand, the youth agoras are just to be consulted in the beginning and in the end. This already in itself, I think it shows a structural flaw in the thinking of the Conference on the Future of Europe. The younger generation is the one that is going to be affected the most by this post-COVID economic and social situation. And it's a generation that is still recuperating from the 2008 crisis. So, of course, I do think that in terms of future-oriented policymaking, in terms of responding to the expectations and aspirations of young Europeans, I think it would be very, very important to actually have the youth participating transversally, meaningfully, and, you know, not just really paying, you know, the lip service that, okay, we have the youth stamp and we're good to go. In terms of policies here, echoing very much what Peter has conveyed, and I think it's very important, the leap that the European Union also has provided with regards to the European Pillar of Social Rights. I mean, here it's a very still broad declaration and set of ambitions. But here again, I think, you know, that the European Parliament and the role of the S&D group in pushing this forward to actually make it a reality is something as well that should be highlighted. And in fact, that should be central even, I would say, to the entire conference. It encompasses a multitude of dimensions. I'll be happy to share here after in the chat box a little bit on the 10 points of the European Pillar of Social Rights. And then again, I do see this as a very important opportunity, an opportunity that many stakeholders and all of us are really excited about. But that, again, I would say even in strategic terms, might require just a little bit of a stepping back and see how it unfolds, and the best way and the way in which the stakeholders, the interested parties, citizens, etc., can best contribute and most importantly, impact the future of the Conference on the Future of Europe.
Thank you, Maria. Balint, you're back. Do you want to continue?
Thank you. I'm back from the last jam session, but I was here from the beginning of the meeting. Well, I was also very happy to hear a lot of buzzwords and interesting comments. My buzzword would be innovative tools. So like some things that also citizens would come up with ideas, and the whole project should encourage people to write about what they think how Europe should look like in 10 years. So not just what it is, but also what's going to be. Like in the last session, I also talked about vision, and I think we need some sort of joint European vision. We also talk a lot about European citizenship, like what does it mean to be European? Like how would you define this? And I think a lot of innovative tools that are around, but not clearly understood and also not debated if they would work for Europe. And I have a list of these innovative tools, like for example, basic income. Like we talk about it, but we don't really know if it's feasible. Like is it a good tool? Is it not? What are the experiences of European countries with working with basic income? And there are a lot of things like this. We talked about, for example, a climate tax. Like a lot of young people say that actually instead of income tax, we should use some form of a climate tax, which would be a motivation for everyone to limit their emission, their footprint on the climate, and not because the biggest issue now is it's a voluntary thing to limit your climate emission, although it should be taxed if you don't. And then a lot of industries like really big emission would disappear from the world because they would be not feasible financially. You have to turn it around and not make it into some sort of bad thing in competition on the European market to be climate friendly, but you should give some rewards for organizations, countries, initiatives that are climate friendly. So that would be a climate tax idea, which is ongoing, coming from German green societies. I also have, for example, this whole issue of minority rights within the European Union. What does it guarantee for minorities, including the Roma population, which had like Roma decades after each other? And then what we see is no real systematic change for the Roma population in the eastern side of Europe. We talk about 10, 20 million people that are segregated and discriminated on a daily basis. And we are very friendly with Black Lives Matters, but actually brown lives also matter, no? I mean, we have not heard anything about this in the last 10 years. That is significant. So there are a lot of topics that maybe citizens could come up with, which matter to them, and you should ask them for this type of innovative tools. What would be your solution for these type of problems? And you would have a lot of creative ideas that people do have, but they don't know how to send to the European stakeholders, parliamentarians, decision makers, because there is not an access to these type of institutions. No one really knows how to start any type of communication with the European Parliament if you're an ordinary citizen, and it's a very, very far reality from ordinary citizens who might have a lot of innovative and creative ideas. So you should open this in some form, and even a competition of ideas or a tool fair or some sort of like an open market for innovative tools, which already exist, and a lot of people came up with a lot of good ideas.
Thank you, Balint. I saw two raised hands, Charlotte and Peter.
Everybody, good evening. Can you hear me? Yeah. All right. Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to come in on with a reply also because you started talking about climate, which is the topic I work on. But first of all, I just wanted to say thank you so much for this invitation, because also this is such a good initiative. And well, I understand that Maria, my colleague here, has been part of the other discussions, but again, you know, it brings us back the memories of the Together initiative and other things that we've done, and so this is just a really, really valuable platform, I should say, that you seem to have created, and I'd be very keen to follow the discussions further on this. Just in terms of answering the questions, said, what should the conference on future of Europe look like? Well, I was, thinking a bit, of course, I'm from Brexit Britain, working in Brussels. So of course, that's definitely my priority, let's say, of how to build an inclusive and not divided Europe, how to build a common project, which of course the EU is, but we know that it's not the same project for everybody. And really it's, what I always say on the back of the Labour membership card of the Labour Party, it's common solutions to common problems. As I say, by the strength of our common endeavour, we can achieve more than we achieve alone. So this is very much kind of where my heart lies in the pro-European, let's say, debate, and how we can advance on the issues that matter to us most, of course, and how we can work together, definitely across borders. And that's why I suppose climate is something I'm very passionate about, but also the one where I see it's very obvious that we can do so much more than we are doing, and especially in terms of working together and working across borders. And so very much I'd like to see the Future of Europe conference making sure it's bridging, not dividing, and being inclusive, as was already said, and really just bringing people together. And well, Maria, I'm sure, has already talked to you also about the interactive discussions we have on the Call to Europe FEPS initiative. So, we can give you plenty of ideas as well. We can feed into these debates if you've got a document that's going afterwards. We can have some ideas for that, for the format of it as well. On the topics, yeah, I very much see this social Europe as the overarching issue for me as well. But I had actually, in my thoughts, broke this down into 3 things, which I suppose is very relevant now. Is 1 is protection, 2 is care, and 3 is fighting inequalities and injustices. And really, of course, protection is about health, protecting our health, but also the welfare systems, and of course the environment. And similar also to this, issue of care. Let's say this is also caring for each other, but of course our surrounding environment. I can see there's a bit of a progressive mood here tonight, so I'm sure everyone has similar ideas, but really just about making social Europe happen. We've been talking about this for years. We really want this to happen, and that is, for me, one of the reasons why we have Brexit, because we didn't have a true social Europe, and this just it's very difficult. There was a recent article that said it was very difficult to campaign on things that are invisible, and that is true, whether it's border tariffs, but also like democratic rights. We get so used to them, the fact that we can just travel between countries. Now, of course, these freedoms that we've got used to that have been kind of limited during COVID times as well is something that I'm sure we can all relate to quite well. And so these kind of invisible rights that we have now as Europeans, we need to not take them for granted, and I certainly don't. Just coming back to the issue of just transition, yes, so Green Deal with a red heart, absolutely. I very much agree with this, and it's also about, I'd like to see real systemic change, and I think that the Green Deal is bringing that on to a large extent. But I think these are the type of discussions that I think we wanted to happen 10, 20 years ago, and they're happening now. So now we don't have much choice on how we do the ecological transition, which I think is, unfortunately then making everything so much more urgent, let's say, in that respect. Now there's a discussion on, should we have gas as the transition fuel? We might have had that choice 20 years ago, but now we're looking at a different story. So just some of those things. But this is very much about the work that we've been doing also on climate is also a lot about access to justice in litigation, legal rights, but also information, data, education, the financial tools, the innovative tools. And so this is something that we also looked at in the climate aspect, let's say, and also looked at models of participation. Again, more of, how to bring it in for climate, but that, you can put it, it can be for anything. So, the youth councils, or Maria's worked a lot on the votes for 16-year-olds. And of course, there's different ways that you can bring in citizens' ideas, first of all, but then really, like, as you said, making sure that people are part of the agenda making and part of the implementation afterwards. We've also got a publication that we did called The People's Transition, again, more on kind of how to bring about climate action. This is more because we felt that, you know, we want to speed up climate action, but you'll have also resistance from different communities. And this is similar, this can be applied to, you know, a particular social policy as well. But it's really a model that we've, you know, thought about of how local communities can really be part of building, designing and co-creating and co-making and co-implementing as well the decisions that affect them. So I can share that with you. Again, like models of participations, of course, you've got the climate. One idea we had was having climate emergency councils, and I'm sorry I'm relating everything to climate here, but it could go with other things as well. It could be democracy emergency council, I don't know. But I think that this is coming back to what someone was saying about being listened to. This is also important when you have an emergency situation. People also need to feel listened to, and this was also another model of participation. On universal basic income, we would also, of course, always say universal basic services, first of all. There's a lot of different services that many people don't have. So this is also, firstly, something that we would call for as well, firstly, before together, but before, let's say, universal basic income. And on climate tax, or carbon tax, let's say, I very much feel that we need to make sure that somehow people are paying for the pollution, but at the same time we have, you know, 100 companies that have created over 70% of emissions in the last 30 years. So we need to make sure that any carbon tax is not downstream, let's say, that we need to make sure indeed that it's not the vulnerable people that are paying for this. We need to make sure it's those that are responsible for this. And the big example, of course, for me, the best example is plastics tax, because you know, the true price of plastic is not, it's not at the moment taken into account, is it? So so I'm sure we could discuss more on that on
yeah,
carbon
totally
tax.
totally. Maybe you could
thank you.
No, I see you have a lot of points, so maybe you could continue in the discussion, because this is really interesting and it has a lot of examples for, yeah. So you can continue in the discussion and add some more points to it. Peter, you raised your hand. Did you want to comment?
Yes, I just wanted to comment on Balint. I just want to say to Balint and to everyone who is listening to us that if we can, the S&D Group will make sure that this is the most inclusive process. One thing I haven't said, we want to continue with a debating platform. We want citizens to directly use, you talked about innovative ways of sort of like discussing with citizens, because obviously it's so difficult to reach out to everyone, but at least we have to give the opportunity and we have to encourage people to actually participate in the conference, to know about the conference, and to actually believe that this is a process which is actually leading to results which they sort of like, so that there are results if they are putting effort into it. Therefore, this will be something we will give great attention to, and hopefully it's going to be a successful conference. I'm sorry I didn't want to, because there are still some people who want to speak.
Thank you, Peter. Talking about European citizens and the European spirit, I think, Nicolas, you have something to tell us about. And you're still muted.
Yes, no, hi to everybody. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Nicolas Desantis. I'm the founder of the Brand EU Center. I'm going to share some slides with you so I can tell you what we do and what we believe this conference should be about. Are you able to see my screen? Hello?
Yeah.
Excellent. So the Brand EU Center was founded in London We believe that the Future of Europe conference should treat one of the major problems of the EU, which is the European identity crisis. We're still facing a crisis of identity in many countries in Europe. Some countries in Europe are more European than others, but again, the idea of identity is not that clear for many citizens. The majority, I would say, if you look at the Eurostat service. When I created the center, I was lucky enough to get the former president of the European Parliament to join as a co-founder, Enrique Barón Crespo, because he believes that the European Union identity is a crucial part of maintaining the integrity of the Union. I've worked on European identity projects for many years now. I developed the brand of the European Movement International. I worked on the European Parliament branding projects, and I worked also on the launch of the euro currency. So my conclusion of many years of projects on the European branding is that the identity of Europe is still too weak and distant from the citizen. And back then in the 90s, I was predicting that as we were enlarging and deepening the European project, this would generate some negative reactions from other countries. So the Brand EU Center mission has been to create and foster a brand of Europe that people can connect with, and that it's also a friendly brand. So why did we create this project? In 2016, there was the State of the Union address by Juncker, and back then he recognized that there was an existential crisis. Also, because of Brexit, we were starting to talk about a referendum in the United Kingdom, and the effects of that referendum were not very clear. If you see the changes of Europe, if we look at the 1990s, we had major geopolitical changes. We had the fall of the Soviet Union, the Balkan Wars, the Maastricht Treaty came into play. We had the Economic and Monetary Union. We had the launch of the euro. We focused on further enlargement, and we accepted 8 European nations. This, for any organization, is a lot of work. And the problem of identity is that the assimilation of this within the European Union construct was not really that clear for many citizens across Europe. The issue with symbolism of the European Union is that it's very institutional, it's very distant, it's not emotional enough. We all, well, not in the UK, but most people carry the euro in their pockets, but still is not enough to create that sense of identity that we need to perceive Europe closer to the citizens. The other factor is that the EU construct and governance is extremely complex. It's complex for experts. Imagine for the citizens that need to try and figure out how the EU work. And Brexit, I think, has showed us how easy it is to attack the EU due to its distant image and weak brand identity. I mean, part of our role as an institution and think tank was to fight Brexit and to dismantle a lot of the lies that we were having during the Brexit referendum. This was the image, a lot of the image of Brexit to people in Britain was that this was the best thing that the country could do and that it was going to be an amazing future as we left the European Union. But we know the reality is very, very different. So a lot of what we do is to bring the fact that the brand of Europe needs to be strengthened. We do this through media and communications. We write many publications on the situation with the brand of Europe, federalism, identity, and issues relating to the image of Europe. With our publications and our activities, we have lobbied the UK Parliament in many cases to talk about the fact that the European citizenship was going to be lost, but millions of people in this country. So one of our campaigns was passed by the House of Commons about the fact of the loss of European citizenship. and we co-signed a letter to Theresa May to defend the rights of European citizens in the UK. So as I said, the European Union construct and federalism and semi-federalism are very, very complex concepts to communicate. So a lot of what we do is to explain those. And we do a lot of educational activities, not only in Europe, but also across the world. This is, imagine, in the University of Wyoming, explaining to students in college what the European Union is and what it's trying to do in the world. So we're very active in communicating the power of Europe. And we do that also with to children. We have created Captain Euro, which is the superhero of Europe. We have developed comic books that we sell on Amazon. Captain Euro has had a lot of coverage in the media around the world. We also launched a project for teenagers, which is a brand of fashion called 12 Stars, that you can also find on the website of 12stars.com. And that is basically to show you what we're doing. We do believe that, and Brexit was a clear example of how fragile the European Union is. And the fact that I think European identity, to you, it might be something that you completely get and understand, but to most citizens is a very distant concept. And that is one of the major problems that I would address in this conference. Thanks.
Thank you, Nicolas. Thank you for that. Reese, or?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's Reese. So,
yes.
Hey, everyone. So it's lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I suppose I'm here on behalf of Model European Union Strasbourg. For those of you who don't know what an MEU is, essentially we stimulate European decision-making for youth. And in the case of MUS, we invite 200 people every year to the European Parliament in Strasbourg, where they step into the shoes of politicians, interpreters, lobbyists for a week. And as Nicolas said, EU governance is complex. So what better way is there to learn than by doing? And I suppose here, I don't have a lot more to add. I was very happy to listen because I feel that so many important things have already been mentioned. So I'll try to be very brief. But first of all, I would say youth. I know that some people already emphasize the importance of not only consultation, and I could not agree with that more. So too often is youth involvement reduced to consultation as opposed to meaningful participation. And too often is a no-end product. So too often are we used as tokens to achieve a political goal. And I fear, to be honest, my impression is that is already the intention with the Conference of the Future of Europe. That's my own personal impression. I sincerely hope that I'm wrong, and I'd better be wrong. Otherwise, I fear that there'll be more disengagement and disillusionment. Secondly, inclusion, I feel, is integral. So one important thing about our conferences is really trying to reach out to people, for example, who maybe haven't been consulted, maybe haven't been approached or involved with the European Union previously. There's also, of course, large rural metropolitan divides. The digital divide now as well is more prevalent than ever with COVID-19. These are all things which somehow the Conference on the Future of Europe is going to have to address if it wants to be truly inclusive. I appreciate there's no easy answer here, but we have to strive to tackle that. Otherwise, we will not have a conference which is reflective of the entirety of Europe. And for me, if it's not reflective of the people of Europe, it's not really a conference at all. Beyond that, I would say that I would hope that this isn't just involving civil society, which of course plays an integral role in Europe, and it's not only involving the political sphere, but it goes beyond that. Because too often our conferences on anything EU related really dominated by voices from civil society and the political sphere, which of course is great to a certain extent, but it doesn't reach outside of the bubble. We need to reach citizens who perhaps have never been approached before, people who perhaps may not be as involved or as active in civil society. If we don't reach out, then we're not going to be the inclusive conference that we want to have. So those would be my few points. Nothing too complex, and I appreciate these buzzwords have been said multiple times before. But of course, I hope that we do have a conference, and I hope that it is as long and as meaningful as has been promised to us for probably way too long now. I thought we'd have begun, but here we are.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you. Nini, welcome back too. You're the last speaker and you have the word.
Hi, thanks for the invitation. For the ones who don't know me, my name is Nini. I'm a writer, actress, and political activist. And yeah, I mean, there are many things already said, but I really want to add that from the things from my perspective, from an activist perspective, because my team from Pulse of Europe and I, we since 2017, we have been working 24/7 to strengthen the European awareness in Austria among the general public. And we've been active in the cities as well as in all Austrian regions in cooperation with the European Citizens Forum. And we organized regularly citizens forums that dealt with EU cohesion policy and future of the European project. And yeah, right now we switched online increasingly with workshops at schools, and the workshops are called Feeling Europe, because we realized that it's you also have to reach the people in their hearts, because it's not enough to like stand there with flags and to talk with people about Europe, but they have to somehow touch it, they have to feel it. And so we developed these workshops which are based on stories of people and very in a emotional narrative, and we try to reach young people in schools and in universities, and try to tell them why Europe, or why the European project is so important, and why it is now that important to engage in the future conference of Europe. And yeah, right now we're also busy at the House Parliaments, the European House Parliaments with Pulse of Europe, and the do tanks, which are like European laboratories for projects that can be made everywhere, all across Europe, very locally and very easily from people to reach this European awareness. And yeah, we've done many things. I mean, I wrote also a book about this topic, which is called "Let's Fight for Europe: With Courage and Love for a Strong EU." And it's in German. But there was also this was also primarily concerned with the call, with the official call to the civil society to take part somehow in the conference on the future of Europe, because what Charlotte says is it's right, because we need all those things, and to tackle all those things, we need reforms. And I think this is what the resolution will be, or what comes out in the end of this conference, that we will stand in front of new reforms for the EU. And in order to cope with the great challenges with our time, I mean, if we want to live in an EU that it's capable of acting and is ready for the future, we cannot avoid it. And however, this will not work if the citizens in the various member states are not yet ready for it. And we have to try our best to raise the awareness, not only in the cities, but also in the difficult spaces, difficult regions, because we also made this very, very different experiences with our Europe activism in the Pulse of Europe cities, and then like in the regions like Styria and Kärnten in Austria. And there, yeah, you have to work a little bit different with the people. And I actually wanted to bring an idea in a discussion. What if the Europe Direct Information Centers, because they're all across Europe, if they would take part also in this conference on the future of Europe? Because if they would build these kind of agoras, I don't know what you meant, or the citizens convents all across Europe, it would be a little bit easier to reach in these difficult spaces, which I meant, because yeah, it's not enough to only reach the people in the streets, maybe in Vienna or in Salzburg or in Innsbruck. And I'm really afraid of this day when there are these results from the conference and we know that we have to change something, that we have these reforms and we have a clear plan what we want from the future of Europe, and then it comes to votings in different EU member states and the civil society is not really ready yet. So I think we have to mobilize something like the Europe Direct Information Centers and revitalize them somehow to empower people to be part of this project. I mean, there are many different NGOs and initiatives that are also trying this, and I'm really happy about this. But I just thinking practically, they are already there and all across Europe, and we just maybe would need to activate them. So let me hear about your ideas about it. And one last thing I want to add is that it's very, very, very important that we cooperate with media and that we have partners, like real media partners in every member states, because without them we can just not raise the awareness only just by being active in the streets or something. We need them by our sides, and it has to be also framed in a positive way and empowering way for the citizens.
Thank you very much. I will hand over the floor to Anna.
Yes, thank you. Thanks to all of you who for all of your ideas. Maybe just to continue on what Nini just proposed as an idea, does anyone would like to comment on that idea? Or I don't know. Yes, Daniela, please go ahead.
I'd like to.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, just to say, I think, of course, I mean, we just started talking a little bit about how communication of the conference should be done, and this should be communicated like far and wide. That's definitely needed. And I think the EU Direct Centers would be a great place to also do that. But actually, I think the best way to promote the conference is really that the institutions from the beginning on, before it even starts, to say that the results of the conference will be directly followed up, and that there will be a real chance to discuss and review the treaties and possibly lead to a treaty change process for the first time in so many years. I think this is kind of like the problem with the European Citizens Initiative. We can like lower the hurdles to sign an initiative. We can do all these great things around the ECI. That's good, but unless it has a political impact, the ECI is really not going to be that strong, and a lot of people are not going to use it. And that's the same thing with the conference. If you're not going to say from the beginning on that this conference is going to have a real political impact and actually lead to something, and potentially, I mean, change the entire treaties, the way that we, the framework of the EU, I think that there will be little interest in it. We might, I mean, the agoras that are proposed by the European Parliament are really great, like randomly selected citizens assemblies that join. We're really a fan of this, and this is a good way to bring like different people. But outside of those people that will be selected, I think it'll be really hard to reach those corners of Europe, because it will just look like from the outside just another EU project, another democratic exercise. So unless you say from the beginning, this is like the clear scope that the conference has, here's the clear follow-up that the conference can have, of course, without preempting the discussions, then I think this will have a much more bigger impact than all of the communication campaigns that we can do around the conference.
Yes, thank you, Daniela. Nicolas, please go ahead.
Thanks, Daniela. Yeah, I think there's an issue also of fragmentation. There's so many organizations across Europe, thousands of think tanks, thousands of NGOs with amazing ideas, amazing willpower, but there's too many and they're too fragmented. I think we should address this also, because if we all get together and do much bigger organizations, we will carry a lot more gravitas when it comes to policy change. The institutions of Europe are built to self-perpetuate themselves. by treaties that, you know, they try not to change, because changing a treaty of the European Union, there are massive difficulties in doing those changes. I do believe they need to be changed as soon as possible, because they're really, the fact that a country can leave the European Union, it's already a problem. I think this is an issue with Brexit. Brexit only happened because we had a political party in this country that was at a civil war with itself, and they had to solve that problem. And for that problem, similar to what happened with Trumpism in America, we saw a Nigel Farage making the Conservative Party fight among itself so that it could trigger a referendum. We cannot have a future of Europe so fragile, left to some demagogues to destroy. There's too much work has been put over the years to build Europe. But I believe that there's still too much fragmentation among civil society organizations and political parties. I think we need to kind of set a course also to merge them. We should come up with a project to merge as many institutions and civil society institutions as possible, because there's probably thousands. There should be only 20, 30, not thousands, because we're losing the voice of that fragmentation. And I see that happen decade after decade, which means I'm very old. Yeah, that's it.
Yes, thank you very much. Reese, before you continue, we forgot about another participant. Gerhard, please introduce yourself.
No problem. Yeah, I'm Gerhard Schuster from Vienna. I'm a co-founder of the European Public Sphere Initiative, and I took part at the first Europe Jam and now at the final Europe Jam, and a lot of things already have been said. I agree with, but what is the key question for me, and this is also said in some points, but to bring it to the point is that all the challenges of the next decades, they will bring big changes, big decisions, and we can only do this in a democratic way, and to get it to the point, or to become it concrete, is that I think we need to develop the European Citizens Initiative into a referendum, in a European referendum. This is for me the major key point. And there are concrete ideas for this. And I think this democratic development is necessary. It is in order to involve the people. It has been already said that it's not enough only to inform people or to consult people, but to bring the ideas of the people's ideas, and to put the people in charge, so that they do not just remain as spectators. And I think the Conference on the Future of Europe can make a start with these decisions. We also can think, for example, about to make something like the European Convention to a permanent convention, to a permanent citizens convention, to bring this to the structures of the European constitution, or to the European law. I think these are the important things, to make it I don't know in English, verbindlich, to make it
Binding.
Binding, to make it binding, to make it real, and that every citizen in Europe is in charge, and is responsibility for our society. And I think this is the heart of not only having nice words on Sunday speeches. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerhard. Yes, Reese, please continue. And then Laura.
Thank you for the floor. And my comment is related, I suppose, to what Gerhard spoke about, and also Daniela, because I wholeheartedly agree that it would be highly beneficial if they were to state from the beginning, institutions, that the intention is, you know, have clear change and to enact meaningful change, ideally, potentially treaties change. I agree with that, and I advocate a lot, you know, in my free time for this, because I think we need it. However, this conference should not be reduced to treaty change, because it seems that time and time again that I speak about the Conference of the Future of Europe, it gets reduced to treaty change. And I think that's very dangerous. I mean, myself also being Charlotte from the UK and being a proud European who's suffered through Brexit, if I went back home to my rural town in Wales and said, hey, we're going to get treaty change, you know, don't you want to get engaged? It doesn't mean anything if somebody doesn't even know what a treaty is, or they feel this distance. So it's very dangerous to focus, I think. It's not, of course, what you're proposing, Daniela and Jared. I know you would like more than that. It's only one factor. It's just we should be careful. And also education, I'd like to point out here. It's something which isn't mentioned that often, but I feel that should feature. And likewise, the methods by which we go around and execute the conference itself. Something that earlier was mentioned, I believe, by Balint United. I apologize, I don't know your first name, I've forgotten it. But you mentioned innovation. And I would hope that the conference itself would also not merely go by, let's say, the traditional means by which we consult and engage citizens, but would seek to take advantage of new methods, especially digital methods, to carry out the conference itself. Otherwise, it would be a wasted opportunity.
Yes, thank you very much. Laura, please go ahead.
I really much enjoyed what you just said just now. And I also, I'm reading from the chat, Balint, who says, if Martin Luther King were to say, I have a treaty instead of a dream, no one would quote him. That is obviously very spot on. But I definitely, yeah, you guys brought up something that I also wanted to mention, which is really about, besides creating specific expectations and objectives for the conference, I think that participants should be informed as to what they can expect to change, because I guess they will all come to this conference after being completely, inflated in their expectations about how this can turn out to become something of a major change. But they have to remain realistic, and I think that they should be informed first and foremost about what are the sort of affordances that they have, what kinds of proposals can they bring forward, and if there are proposals that go beyond their own capabilities, how can they also suggest changes to happen? Because of course, if we mention to them, oh yeah, after this conference treaties will change, but they don't really know what that means. So I think that also, even before the conference starts, they should be given a set of very specific and simple, I would say, I wouldn't say boundaries, because that sounds sort of, it doesn't sound very attractive, but a set of criteria by which they can expect to abide. So for example, what are my rights as a citizen? What are my rights in this conference? What can the EU do and what can the EU not do that I ask for? So I think if we actually brought this forward in the conference, this would create a set of more realistic expectations without, of course, killing the vibe about what they can and cannot change. And of course, the conference cannot be about purely the treaties. It can't just boil down to that, because that's a very unsexy topic, absolutely. But I think it's definitely something that can be incorporated in somewhat an attractive way, not in a super technical manner that basically makes them go to sleep, but in a way that makes them understand that this is also part of the conversation, together with other topics that have been discussed in the past few hours, few minutes, regarding climate change, as well as education. So yeah, I definitely think that a set of more realistic expectations should be created, and it should also be conveyed in a way that is simple and clear and attractive and memorable, especially.
Yes, thank you, Laura. Charlotte, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I just wanted to add to this very interesting discussion, but also just to say, yeah, that it's about also just that it doesn't all just become kind of volunteerism as well. This is something that annoys me a bit, and I think that this has been, let's say, steered towards that way, that we need to have the proper frameworks basically to be able to have the discussion and not expect, like you say, that it's this kind of same socio-economic homogenous group of people that are always that are doing this. And so indeed, like, it needs to be taken into schools, but also just again building on existing models of participation. How can we, we don't have to have a special, well, we do have to have this special Conference of Europe, but also we need to just generally improve citizens' participation in democracy, throughout the daily lives. And just one thing I wanted to add earlier that I didn't, on the green, on the climate pact that was launched recently, that was a really clear example. I don't know if anyone followed it, but where people were expecting, where people were expecting like more concrete frameworks, let's say, because this is the Green Deal is going to be a huge transition in all our lives. And absolutely, we need to be consulting people, but it needs to be more than that. And I think that that's what a lot of people were disappointed, and me included, that we were expecting more concrete frameworks of how people would, would be part of that process. And absolutely, agenda setting in the beginning, but also making sure that how the findings would be implemented at the end. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Anyone else likes to comment? Yes, Peter, please go ahead.
I just wanted to come back also on the issue of, you discussed the, so we need to basically consult citizens on things that matter to them and speak to them, not in Brussels bubble language, but, and then so that treaty change, what we just mentioned before. A little bit the complication there is that you have some issues which are actually which necessitate treaty change, but that's the ultimate aim. The actual discussion needs not to be about that. So basically, what we shouldn't talk to citizens about the social protocol to the treaty, but we need to talk to them about the issues that will actually change their everyday lives to. And somebody said here that if we mention the treaties, people have no idea what the treaties are, and I totally agree that. But it's just that one of our members, I remember, said this very sort of like nicely, that for instance, unanimity, the problem of unanimity at the European level, of course, it's an institutional issue, and you can go into describing it, but in reality, the end of it is unanimity kills democracy. It is the end of democracy. So we need to decide together, and that for that we need to create, and obviously there are ways of explaining that and discussing that and debating that without just using sort of like treaty articles or expressions. That's what I wanted to add.
Yes, thank you. Michelle, please.
Yes, first of all, sorry if I have the camera switch off, but I have not Wi-Fi here where I am, so I have also to spare some data. And I wanted also to thank you and Daniela to organize all that, because it's really a very important discussion, and I hope we will be all keep in touch. Of course, many of us know each other, and so I know many people of FEPS, Maria, and so on, and happy to see them. But I really think there is some momentum here in the discussion. And what was just said by Peter, I think it's a crucial point. So we have to create the momentum for a treaty change without talking about treaty change somehow, if I may put the thing like that. And at the same time, play on different tables or aspects of European society and of European political class, let's say that. So if I may put there an analogy that I use also other times, and especially the Federalists are loving this type of parallel. Probably we can interpret the Conference of the Future of Europe as you remember the États généraux, what's the name in English, Estates General of 1789, where the king, so in that case, the commission and the council, under strong pressure of the parliament, so there is convocating all the different part of European society to discuss about the future of the realm. Then we know already that there will be some problem with the noblesse, let's say the council. So that already happened. No? The European Parliament is deliberating in a very democratic way, for instance, about the reform of Dublin Treaty, and then in the council, some people, they just say, no, we don't want that. And then the good reforms are not approved. So I see that. I think also in the Conference of the Future of Europe, let's see what will be the methodology. A lot of us are working to push for a good methodology. But the question of the mandate and how the outcomes of these agoras will be used, it's crucial. And so I think somehow the point is that the democratic body, the European Parliament, at the end should play. Sorry if I use this term, could be a bit strong, but a revolutionary role. So to use the Conference on the Future of Europe debate, and if the Commission project, as maybe you already know, the Commission is they say they have already ready a platform for transnational citizen deliberation online. Okay, that it's something really amazing. It looks like they will use or they already used to implement this platform Decidim software. You know, this one used also by Barcelona municipality, and it was built up not in a bureaucratic way, but really from grassroots activists. So if you have really this structure of citizen participation and deliberation, digital, and so these agoras, and you have the parliament, which is the democratic, let's say, the third state representation, and then you have the noblesse, the council, they will try like to say, okay, wait, we don't know, not treaty change, etc. Then will be like the union of the parliament that at some point they maybe at the end of the conference they will have to say, okay, we want to have the treaty changes. If you don't have the treaty changes, you will see the civil society will be very, very vocal about that, right? Also towards you governance, that you have to be re-elected at some point. And then you can have the trigger of this article, and also to have this discussion in a productive way. It could be also a risk to have this article triggered if we don't have a momentum towards a more democratic European Union. So the question of to have a majority rule in all the aspects of the policy of European Union in the Council, that is crucial. Peter was very right. But at that point should come up. So I already talked too much, but just, okay, the agoras, you citizens, you deliberate about very good things in environmental issue, etc., etc. But if you don't have this change in the decision making, then all this good stuff will be not or improved at the point they should have to. And then after the majority, you could also introduce, I mean, the avant-garde, not the Jacobins, let's hope, because the Jacobins, I mean, they had, but let's say the Federalist avant-garde could use the trigger of 48 to then push towards a constitution. That, I mean, we cannot imagine, so we can imagine in our mind, but that will be a historical process. We have to say stage by stage how we can intervene to go there. Sorry to be a bit long.
Yes, thank you very much, Michelle. Gerhard, please go ahead.
Yeah, I want to continue a little bit in this question of changing treaties. I'm totally agree with what I don't know his name. said
Michele.
before. Yeah, if you say, yeah. And but I think it's also a question or a matter of education, that rights and laws and also contracts are in some way the stuff of which society is made. It's the material of society. We work in laws, we work in contracts, and I think this is also important not only for every citizens but also for an active civil society to bring their proposals in the form of laws, in the form of concrete changes of the contracts. Because how to say, like an artist who form his sculpture out of stone, we as social artists, we form our society, or we create society in the forms of laws and treaties and rights. And so this is, I think this is a question of education. What is the artistic way of building society, creating laws together, and decide them in the last step, decide them in a direct democratic way.
Yes, thank you, Gerhard. Any comments or questions? Go ahead, Peter. Yeah.
Just want to add, because we haven't spoke about that, but one of the things we have been very much discussing as well is to avoid to have national debates, you know. So we need to have this. I just want to rebound on what Gerhard said, is that it's extremely important to create our laws, but to create them together as European. And of course, there are European citizens and not as separate. So one thing we're going to be looking at also avoiding is to have 27 separate debates, you know, and then this could become sort of like the local national debates, which will not help at the European level if this is not sort of like, if we don't feel that we have a common European Union that we're all building together. So totally agree with Gerhard. I just wanted to add that to the discussion.
Yes, thank you. Daniela, please.
Yeah, maybe as a one of the last questions. I mean, we spoke a little bit about the role of citizens in the conference would be, but I wonder if some of you have given thought about what the role of civil society would be in the conference, because I think civil society will really be key in the structure of the conference and about how to really shape the results. We just need to, I mean, so many of our organizations here are working on this, but just to keep up the pressure on the institutions, but also work together with our friends in the parliament on this. I mean, I totally agree with Michele that yes, the conference it's a tri-institutional effort, but I think we really like to see the parliament really, you know, as the House of Citizens' voices, to really be the ones like spearheading this. So I see like the role of civil society organizations maybe as like part of a civil society forum of some kind to like monitor and constantly review how the process goes, to be like that liaison between the citizens and the institutions. And maybe organizations can apply for it, or the organizations who have been following this process for a while could be part of this. But I know that there's the commission, it was announced just last week, we had with the Citizens Take Over Europe, we had some members of MEPs and from the commission and so on, a public hearing with them on this topic. And it was announced that the commission is working on this, I think they called it a digital deliberative platform. So some kind of like online platform that will really allow for this transnational debate in real time. We don't know exactly what that looks like. I don't know if anyone really knows what that looks like yet outside of the commission, but this would be really interesting. I mean, what kind of role maybe civil society would have on this platform, because especially if the conference is going to start anytime in the next few months, and hopefully it does under the Portuguese presidency, it will be likely in a really digital format. So it will be just more important what this platform will look like, and what kind of role then will external actors, I mean, I guess like us, civil society organizations, where we will have there. But yeah, I'm wondering if anyone else has given a little bit of thought to how civil society can look like in the process.
Thank you, Daniela. Laura, please go ahead.
Well, I thought that when you mentioned civil society, perhaps it can be people or societies that are familiar with deliberative methods and can actually maybe able to shape the methodology of the conference, because I feel like the way that if institutions were to only organize this by themselves without some kind of external support that actually has been in touch more perhaps with citizens, and of course the parliament also has, but I still feel that civil societies might be closer to citizens in a way. In a way, I think civil societies in the category of facilitation and democracy and decision making can help to sort of shape the structure a little bit, coming up with a methodology that can somehow be guided from beginning to end. So for example, providing guidelines for participation, how should they create a conversation that is civil and that is respectful, and which gives equal amount of speaking time to all the participants of this conference. And of course, throughout the process, how can these ideas be implemented? How can they be synthesized in a constructive way? I think that civil society in that sense can have a very significant technical role to play in order to ensure that the conference becomes well organized and which continues to be focused with a purpose, especially in the role of the follow-up. I think that's definitely a role. And I know that there are so many civil societies out there, including also what most of us here do, which is very much specialized in these kinds of moderating roles or deliberative methodology roles. So I think they should definitely be involved.
Thank you. Balint, please.
I very much agree, and also what Nicolas said about the fragmentation of civil society. So there's also a point that we could also play as a liaison to involve more organizations and also to broaden the participation through this. So we could kind of create some sort of, how to say it, like not a guest list or something like this. I don't know what's the proper phrase for that, but sort of like those organizations that could help in the dissemination previously, because for example, the European Youth Forum or European Youth Press are really good, let's call them liaisons for youth, engaging youth. So there are some that I could also help drafting. I think everyone could put like 10, 15 larger networks or organizations to this. So dissemination would be one. And the second is also to influence a little bit the topic. So like to collect those ideas that might be interesting, even asking directly politicians specific questions, like to have some sort of what is it going to be about? And that is something that the NGOs could participate in formulating these questions, because I believe so that if this forum is only between members of civil society and ordinary citizens, and there are no key speakers from higher decision-making bodies and politicians, there will be less interest. So if you can ask directly your politicians, then a lot of people would come to this event, but also to channel the questions. So not just directly let this discussion, because then it can be like, you know, not really, how to say it, not leading anywhere, but we could formulate and collect these questions and then also advertise it like this, that these 10 questions would be asked from, I don't know, the head of the parliament. And this type of role we could play also to inspire the whole discussion to be a little bit more tactical in sort of what we want to talk about, what is needed to talk about, but not to fringe it to have like 100 not so important questions come up.
Yes, thank you, Balint. Reese, before you continue, I would like to say that we only have a short time left, and after your part, I would like to gather some key takeaways from this session. So maybe if you could also start on that, Reese, in your comments. So
I'll be very brief. I was just going to agree wholeheartedly with the dissemination aspect, and I think that is particularly key when it comes to trying to make the conference as inclusive as possible. There are so many associations and organizations in civil society whose know-how, especially when it comes to certain minority communities or marginalized communities, or people who perhaps may not be able to engage as easily or know as easily as how to as many other citizens. I think that will be a key role too for civil society in that regard. And I'm still worried about this digital divide, especially with more and more, conversations about this being digital. Well, where does that leave certain, let's say, older populations as well? As much as my focus is on youth, I feel it would be rather, it would be a mistake if suddenly it would merely to be only those who have access to digital, technologies. And indeed, that would, privilege certain demographies. And I feel that that would also perhaps, lead to some voices being unheard. So civil society can hopefully play a role there. And that's all I wanted to say.
Yes, thank you very much. Anyone wants to start with some key takeaways? Yes, Peter, please.
I want to say that I really like the reflection on many of you said on uniting. We have to get our voices heard, and we have to help the process of getting more and more citizens into this debate. And I think that you will work, in different organizations where we can. But the thing is, I think, I'm not sure who said it, but is that we are not united enough. And I think that we need to all work together, because we have a very clear idea of Europe. We fight for Europe, and I think it's important that we unite against those, and we mentioned that tonight as many times, against those who want to deconstruct Europe, because it's there, unfortunately, and sometimes those forces are really well organized, and therefore we need to organize as well to make sure that this becomes a participative project. And maybe one last thing is that, and this also comes to those, we actually talked about it a lot as well, the youth, yes, which is digitalized very often, but sort of like the older generations. I really, really hope that we will be able to come back to normal sort of like life, and that we have normal events. And I think our group will very much favor that, to go to the member states and have debates, sort of like physical debates where people can actually attend, come and discuss Europe. We very much hope in that. But for that, I think it's also very crucial that the conference is extended, and that we're not looking into the timeline which was initially considered. That's all I wanted to say.
Yes, thank you very much. Anyone else?
Yes, I'd like to, Peter, I agree with you. I'm the one who mentioned the fragmentation. And yes, there are enemies of Europe everywhere, in every country. And depending on the circumstances, they'll become probably more powerful or less powerful, but we cannot risk that kind of situation. What I would like all of you to take away from today, I think, from what I've said, is always keep the issue that the European identity needs to be a topic that you always talk about, because no matter what you do in whatever area, if the European identity keeps being weak, no matter the efforts you do, you will be struggling against the tide. So as the European identity gets stronger, your world will get stronger. If the European identity gets weaker, no matter what you do, voices will be lost. So keep it always as a key topic on your discussions, because I think that we cannot build a European future without a strong identity. I also think I would like to propose that if you all, I will be in touch with all of you through Democracy International, but I would like to invite you all as organizations to join Brand EU as collaborators, because obviously we're about the brand of Europe. And I think it's, for us, it's a non-political message, although we're pro-European. It's a non-political approach to talk about Europe when you talk about the brand. And the brand can be many areas, from the environment to civil rights to any other issue. The brand of Europe can be a vector to get citizens interested, because the normal citizen is not really interested in European affairs, let alone international affairs. So we have to face that reality as well. It's what I said about complexity. The EU is too complex. And look, it's complex for us. Imagine for the common citizen. So unless you've been a young person in Erasmus and you've gone through the application of Erasmus, and Erasmus is one of the things close to your heart, citizens are really distant from the project. So I will invite you all to join us in collaborating in projects. We are planning a forum to discuss the identity of Europe issue. We don't know when because of COVID, because we would like it to be presential. But as things stand, it might have to be a virtual forum, but I would like to invite you all to attend. Thank you.
We will be there.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicolas. Maria, I saw your hand was raised, so maybe as a last contributor to this event, just go ahead, please.
The very last, oh my God, okay. pressure increasing. No, I mean, as perhaps in the last round, because I think that in the last round, I tried, to bring about a little bit more of optimism, of, positivism, a little bit more of hope. I guess since, you told me I'm the very last one, I will focus on that. I do think that, at least we were able to outline the challenges, that we as engaged civil society organizations and as Europeans we're facing. But even today, we already got, I would say, even a very good idea, to have, let's say, a more comprehensive list, which Democracy International has already compiled, build it further, keep in touch throughout the preparatory stages, implementation, and even follow-up of the Conference on the Future of Europe, and really just being there for each other. I mean, I do appreciate Nicolas' invitation, FEPS, the S&D group, etc. We are all mobilizing, our forces exactly to create these sort of spaces where these issues can be further discussed. So, it goes just really perhaps directly to a plea to Democracy International to keep the conversation going. The EU Jam sessions, I think, were something quite innovative. I really appreciated the forums, just a motivation to continue going. And, on behalf of FEPS as well, do keep us involved. And we, Charlotte and other colleagues as well, Peter in the S&D group, all of us, I think we are, united in the sense of saying that we are ready, to give an extra step and offer support wherever we can.
Thank you very much, Maria. Thanks. Okay, so
Thanks, Maria.
now we've come to an end of our last session of the Europe Jam project, and I would like to thank each and every one of you for sharing your ideas and thoughts on this topic. And we will upload all of our sessions on our YouTube channel if you'd like to watch it or share it with your network. And also, if everyone agrees, we could do an email list and share it with all of you so you're able to connect with each other after our session. And thanks again for being here and making this great discussions possible. And we will keep you posted on any other similar events of ours. Until then, we wish you all the best, stay safe, and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.